Hey Aubrey, how's it going today?
I'm great, Lindsay. How are you?
Good. I'm excited to be on the mic with you today. It looks like we're going to be talking about fishing a little bit today.
Yes, this is really fun. We had a listener write in a very thoughtful and interesting question. And our answer, we're going to give you guys something that's very useful, which is strategies and questions to further engage in a conversation, to keep the conversation going, to build that connection. But yes, we're going
Yes,
to end up talking about fishing a little bit.
fishing. Right, because fishing is the kind of activity where you absolutely need to be having a conversation. It can be, I mean, I've never been fishing. You're going to tell us a lot about fishing today, Aubrey. But I'm sure that
That's
there's a lot
true,
of
though.
space for conversation while
That's true.
fishing.
If you go fishing with someone, you're going to end up chatting because there's a lot of time where you're sort of just sitting, waiting. So
Yes.
it really would actually be a great or a great activity to do with someone when really the goal, the purpose is to just have a good chat.
I love it. I love it. And I think that's true for sports like golf as
Oh yeah.
well,
Hmm.
especially in the business world, right? It's really for building sometimes business relationships. Going golfing is not so, or even going to a baseball game, going to
Yes.
a Red Sox game. You're sitting there with your colleague or a friend and you're just building the relationship. And baseball is the kind of sport where, unless you're a crazy fan, you don't have to be 100% zoomed into it, right?
I think even crazy fans have plenty of time to chat, right?
Yes.
In the slow parts of an inning. So yeah, you're right. I think when a colleague invites you to go fishing or golf or baseball, some of these activities where you're just sort of sitting and watching or not doing much, you can count on
Yes.
having a good conversation, plan on building that relationship because you're going to have the time, the silence for it.
Yeah, so we need the skills for this. But before we get into it today, I want to let our listeners know, go over to allearsenglish.com/app, guys, APP. That's where you can get the iOS or the Android app, and you can go a little bit deeper with All Ears English. All right, good
Yes,
stuff.
right. So much good vocabulary. You want
Yes.
that app so it's easy to add it to your vocab list for sure.
Yeah, Aubrey, you're the one who curates our vocab choices for the app. She designs for you kind of a little bit of a learning plan by selecting about 7 words per week or per episode, rather, that you
Hmm.
guys are going to go deeper into and learn from the episodes. So
Yeah,
good.
exactly. And because we have 4 episodes every week, that ends up
Yeah,
being quite a bit of good vocabulary. And every
really
single
good.
episode, there are idioms, phrasal verbs, words that natives use very interestingly. So this makes it easy. You don't have to like look it up and then not be sure what's the definition. We make it very simple for
Yes.
you.
You got it. All right. So, should I go ahead and just read the question? Wow, we have a long question. Maybe we'll
Yes, it
take
is a
turns
little bit
here.
of a long question, but it's very interesting. Yes, read
All
it
right,
for us.
let me read a few lines and then I'll throw it back to you, Aubrey. All right, here we go. Hi, Lindsay and Michelle. I've become a huge fan of your podcast. I recently started following up and found it very useful for day-to-day conversations, communications. By the way, I am a non-native English speaker, born and brought up in India, and I'm living in Chicago. So here's the question. I had a conversation with my colleague who lives in Minnesota. He's over 50. He started describing how ice fishing works and all the fun activities they do out there. He mentioned some of his friends who are based out of Florida and have never seen snow before that they had visited his place. He went on explaining all those fun things they did, like riding a truck on a frozen lake, ice fishing, staying under the ground in a heated room, etc., etc. It was a lot of fun to hear, especially how his friends freaked out. But I was not able to ask appropriate questions or could not engage in the conversation due to my lack of communication skills. It would be great if you guys could bring this up and discuss. Thank you. I love you guys. Mahesh. Fantastic question, Aubrey.
Yes, it is such an interesting question. And I love the insightfulness where Mahesh realized that the reason they weren't able to engage had nothing to do with the fact that they didn't know a lot about ice fishing. Because you
Mm,
can ask questions, you can engage in a conversation, even if you don't know much about, what the other person is talking about. But
yeah.
if you feel like you don't have those communication skills, you don't know the questions to ask, it doesn't matter what the topic is, you might struggle. So that's the skill we want to give you guys today.
Okay, so today we're giving our listeners the broader skill, not the ice fishing skills or the driving a car in the lake vocabulary, right? It's the broader skill on how to engage in that conversation if you really don't know much about the activity, right?
Right. But I must
Okay.
admit, that we get a lot of questions, you guys, and I was looking through all these questions, and this one really caught my eye because I grew up ice fishing. So this, I was kind of excited to be able to talk about it. It's something I haven't thought about in a while. Have you ever gone ice fishing, Lindsay?
No, I have a lot of questions for you. I mean, it's interesting. I always look out at those little huts on the ice and I think, oh my gosh, first of all, are they afraid of falling in? Second of all, are they freezing cold? And third, is it boring? Is it exciting? I mean, were you ever afraid of falling in the ice? You spend so much time on the ice with the
That's a good
house.
question. Yeah, I was not. We went to a lake in Montana called Hebgen Lake. So it was a few hours
Love
drive.
Montana.
My dad would wake us up before the sun rose. It would still be dark outside. And then, us kids would sleep on the way. But so this lake was frozen over, frozen solid. And you'd have to use what's called an auger, which
Okay.
rotates like this and digs a hole in the ice. And you would see it would go down a couple
Oh,
of feet.
couple
So you
feet.
could
So
see
very
how
thick.
thick the ice was.
Okay.
If it were thin, yes, I would worry about falling in. We never drove a truck on the ice. I love that Mahesh's friend did that. We just would walk out,
Yeah.
no matter how thick the ice is, I don't know if I would ever drive a truck. But when you know it's several feet thick, you probably could be confident driving a truck out onto the ice. But we would just walk out, drill our holes in the ice, and we would see those huts you're talking about. Sometimes we would see people in their huts and be jealous because there was no hut
Oh,
for
you
us.
didn't have
We were just out in the cold, and it would sometimes be very windy and cold, and we're sitting there with our fishing pole. We did have, of course, thick coats and warm gloves. We were prepared for the weather, but no matter what,
Okay.
it was still cold. And
Oh
I'm
my
surprised my
gosh.
dad got us to do that as kids. I think we were just so excited to spend time with him doing anything. And what was really
Oh,
fun
that's
is when
cool.
you did get a fish, they were always huge. It was always like as big as the hole. So to pull it out was so exciting and
That's
fun.
cool.
But it's kind of
Wow. Oh,
crazy. It's kind of a crazy thing to do, but it was fun. We would go a couple times every winter growing
I
up.
love it. I love it. I feel like, what you're doing now is you're telling a story about something you used to do that means something to you, right? When you were a kid, right? And this could be another episode that we could go into how to ask someone about an important childhood ritual, something that they used to
Oh,
do a
yes.
lot,
Yeah, and
right?
why it's meaningful. Why did they enjoy it for sure? Because you're right,
Mhm.
when it's something connected to your childhood, there's so much
Huge.
nostalgia.
Yes. And we could learn a lot about if we're talking with our colleagues on that, about their values, like, are they close to their family? Are they active? All these good things that we need to do in business, right? We need to build that relationship. So I think another day we could go into this more. What were the things you
Yeah.
did as a kid and what did it mean to you? And as a business colleague, how could you ask about that stuff? Very cool.
Yes,
Very cool.
definitely, right? As a way to go even deeper. The
Hmm.
questions we're going to give you today are a way to extend the
Yeah.
conversation so that you can keep building that relationship so that it's not, someone tells you, I went ice fishing and the conversation stops there. You do
Exactly.
want to go into it more. But you're right, Lindsay, you can go
Hmm.
even deeper to
Even
ask them,
deeper.
like, why do you think you enjoyed that as a child? If it's something they did when they were a
Yes.
kid, to tap
Yes.
into that. Why was it meaningful? How did it help them become who they are?
Yeah, absolutely. So maybe that will be a part two of today's
I
episode,
like
right?
it.
But let's get into today's lesson, right? So, four
Yes.
questions to engage in this conversation. Your colleague comes in, they say, hey, I went ice fishing over the weekend. It was so amazing. What do you say?
Yes. So our first strategy, you guys have heard us talk about this here before, is remember those question words, right? Who,
Yes.
what, when, where, why. There are so many
Hmm.
things that you can ask that start with these questions. So we're going to give you four that are very useful no matter what the topic, whether they're talking about ice fishing, whatever they've been doing, four questions that you can likely apply to whatever someone is telling you, right?
Yes. All right. So, what's number one, Aubrey?
So number one is, how long have you been doing that? So this, of course, if someone is telling you that they just did something for the first time, this is not one you will use. This is for
Yes.
something that someone is letting you know they've either done since they were a kid, maybe, or that you can tell they've done it more than once. It's something they're familiar with. This is a great question to ask, how
Yes.
long they've been doing that, right? If it's ice fishing or practicing a sport or a
Yeah.
hobby, it's interesting to know how long. And this gets into what you were saying. Have you been doing
Mhm.
that since you were a child, or is it pretty
Yeah.
new?
Yeah. And this is kind of your lowest hanging fruit here, right? It's the most obvious one. It's the easiest one in a way, right? And it allows the person, if they're proud of the fact that they've been ice fishing their whole lives, they can show that. They can tell you that. Or maybe they've been playing a sport and they're quite good by now. They can let you know, right? It can like it's a bit of an ego thing for people sometimes, which can be good, right?
Yes, so
Let them
true.
show off a little bit. Why not? Right?
Exactly, right? And often this is not or should not be faked or forced. Like you
Yeah.
really will be interested. You know what I mean? You want to
Sure.
be interested. You want to
Yep.
show them you're interested. And
Totally.
what's really tragic is like Mahesh's situation where this person was interested and didn't know
Mhm.
exactly how to ask, exactly what to say to find out more, to keep the
Mhm.
conversation going. So these, like you said, it's kind of low hanging fruit. They're pretty basic questions, but all of these are perfect for continuing the conversation, diving a little deeper.
Exactly. I mean, we never want you guys to feel that language is standing in your way of that connection. That could have been a really awesome connection moment, right? That's what All Ears English is
Yes.
all about. It's that exact moment for Mahesh where he saw that he could engage, but he didn't quite have the words. So we are here to help you with that today. So, first one, how long have you been doing that? Perfect. What would be the second one then, Aubrey?
Yeah. So to ask how they got started, you can say, what got you started with that? And
Hmm.
again, this you have to be flexible, right? Because when you ask
Yeah.
that first conversation, there's a chance they'll go into it more and they'll tell you this. They'll tell you how they
Mm,
got started, but maybe not, right? If they just tell you how long they've been doing it, this would be a really
yes.
interesting follow-up question to ask what got them started. Was it a parent that loved doing it? Was it a friend that they did it with? Or did they, see a YouTube
Hmm.
video and want to start doing something? It's interesting
Yeah.
to know how people got started with things.
Yeah, there's always going to be a reason, right? There's a
Mhm.
reason we do things for a reason, and they're going to want to tell you that. And it's interesting the word choice here. You didn't say, why did you start that? Because that would present a slightly different, I guess, attitude toward it, maybe, depending on your
I
tone of
agree.
voice. But this is unique choice of words, right? What got you started? It's quite native and natural the way we say that. What got you started,
I
right? Was it
agree,
a
right?
thing, a
It's a little more
person?
formal to say, "Why did you start doing that?" And
Yeah,
depending on the tone, it might
it
almost
could.
sound like
Yeah,
you're judging them, like you think maybe it's not a
exactly.
wise thing to do.
Exactly. So being careful there. So I like the word choice here, right? Guys, write this down, right? What got you started with that? Okay. And number three is where do you do it? Where did you go, right? This past weekend to
Mhm,
your
mhm.
coworker, Mahesh, where did you go ice fishing or where do you usually go? Right? Where?
Exactly.
Hmm.
Yep. So no matter what it is that people are talking about where they went that weekend, they're usually not from the outset going to give you all the details, right? And this is something
Yeah.
interesting to find out. If they're talking about hiking or skiing or ice fishing, where do they go? Is it somewhere close by? Maybe somewhere
Mhm.
beautiful that you haven't seen? Or do they
Yes.
travel quite a ways to do it? It would be
Yes.
interesting if they haven't already told you exactly where they go, ask them about that.
I love it. I love it. And then the last one, Aubrey, what's that?
It's to ask, when are you doing it next? If this is something they do often, they likely have a plan at some point to do it again. And it's interesting to ask about that. They're going to be excited to tell you, oh, I wish I could go soon. I can't go until next year, or I'm going next weekend. People always are
Yeah.
excited to talk about upcoming plans that are fun.
Yeah, it's kind of fun to get to know these things about your colleague because you may see just one side of your colleague at work, but it turns out they have all these interesting and strange hobbies, right? They collect strange
Right.
things like little mini race cars or something, and they're super into it, right? And to be able to comment on that and connect with that part of them is quite special, I think. So,
Yes, I agree. All right, so we have a fun role play where you and I
mhm.
are going to practice.
Okay.
We are friends meeting for coffee and chatting about our weekend, and
All
we're
right.
going to use these questions.
Okay. And I like my first question. Am I A or
Oh,
actually,
I'm A. My
you are
my
A
letter
because
might
Aubrey.
A, so I get to ask that fun first question.
Okay.
All right, ready?
Yeah.
What did you get up to this weekend?
Oh, we actually went spelunking.
Oh, crazy. That's climbing in caves, right? I have not done much of that. Where do you go to do that?
Well, we usually go to a place near here, but we ventured out and explored some caves a couple of hours north.
Oh, have you done it anywhere else?
Yeah, I used to do it back east. It's really fun, but it can definitely be scary. You have to be very prepared, and it's best to go with a guide or someone who's been before.
What got you started with that? Have you done it since you were a kid?
Yeah, my parents took me when I was pretty small to a cool cave with stalactites and stalagmites, and I've been fascinated with them ever since.
That is awesome. When are you doing it next?
Probably next month when we go to California, there are water caves there we want to check out.
Nice. Oh, what a fun
Yeah.
conversation. I could totally see this coming up. Like,
Yes.
this is something fairly rare for people to go spelunking, to be exploring in
Yes.
caves. You would definitely want to be able to ask them more questions about it like this. And you have to keep
Yes.
in mind, just like you did, Lindsay, when people share something they did, they usually don't give you a whole paragraph and all the
No.
details. It's
No.
much more natural and native for them to just kind of give you the tip of the iceberg. And you have
Yes.
to ask those questions to get more info.
Exactly. And you don't have to ask all of them, right? We've given you four. You don't have to go through all of them in this order or in any way, but just
For
get to the
sure.
point where you feel like you're having a substantive conversation, right? That's the key, right?
Yes, exactly. So let's go through this. The
Okay.
first, I like this question as well to say, instead of what did you do this weekend? It's very native to say, what did you get up to this weekend?
Yeah, I love that one too. I was going to point that out. Super native and natural guys, write that one down because we do ask about the weekend a lot. And instead of always saying, what did you do over the weekend? What'd you get up to this weekend? So much more interesting, right?
Yes, exactly. And then you told me we went spelunking, which is a word
Yeah.
many of you might not be familiar with. It means exploring caves. And so then I said, where do you go to do that? And I would be interested because a lot of caves wherever you live, I feel like people know about caves, but not
Yeah.
everybody does. Like I know there are caves around that people know about. I don't know where they are.
Really? I guess in Utah and the national parks in the West, there probably are a lot of caves, but very ooh, what it sounds like a very adventurous sport. I've never tried it before.
And it is dangerous, just like this conversation. So you guys don't go spelunking without proper gear and guides and knowing where you're going because
Yes.
it people have died, right? People have died exploring caves because they'll go in and then the water level will rise and they're trapped. So it is very
Yes.
dangerous, but people do it. You're right. It's very adventurous. It can be very scary. Flirting with
Have you done it
disaster. So
yourself?
just be
Aubrey,
careful.
have you done it
Yeah.
yourself? Have you been yeah.
I
Okay.
have. I
Where
have.
did you go?
Most of the caves I've been to are very safe. I go with people who have been many times, and there's not water in them. And just in northern Arizona, there's a big one. And then in
Wow.
Idaho, there are quite a few. There are lava tubes where it's a very clearly cut cave, but often they are bear caves. Like there could be bears living in them. So we'll send someone in kind of carefully to make sure there are no bears
Oh
inside.
my gosh.
Kind of
That's
crazy, right? It's
terrifying.
very dangerous.
That's terrifying. Wow, the West is so amazing. It's just
That's true.
amazing. The stuff you can do out here, it's just incredible. I love it. So
It's
good.
true.
But that's bear caves, I'm not so sure about that.
I know, right? Avoid bear caves, guys. That's just good life advice.
Do not enter a bear cave.
Right.
All right, then what else did we say here? So you said, yeah, where do you go to do that, right? And then the next one I
And then
see,
have you done it anywhere else, right? I think this is really interesting because if
mhm,
someone's talking about like exploring caves, that's interesting to know. Okay, is this something you've done in other states? Have you done it anywhere
right,
else, right? And then they
right,
might be able to tell you some of the most interesting places they've done it.
yeah, because that lets you see how much of a fanatic are they about this sport, right? Or
True.
this given activity, whatever it is. And it opens up a place for them to tell a couple of fun stories. And people love to share stories with you. They end up liking you more if they share more of yourself with you, right? So this is how we
Totally.
build that relationship completely.
Yep.
And then I said, you said, what got you started with that, right?
And I follow that up with, have you done it since you were a kid? I do this a lot where I'll say, well, what got you started? And then I'm almost filling in a little bit, like, have you done it since you were a kid? Like, quick
Yeah.
follow-up question. And then they
Yeah.
sort of answer both, right?
I love that. That's so good. And then the final one, that is awesome. You said, when are you doing it next? Right? When's the next trip? Right?
hmm
So
Gives you
good.
that
This
fun chance to talk about the next time you're doing this fun thing you love doing, which is always fun.
Oh my gosh. What is the takeaway for today, Aubrey? This is fantastic. Such a key
Yes.
skill.
It is such a key skill. We want you guys to avoid that situation where someone's talking about something interesting and you just don't know what to say to take it further. So
Yeah.
use this strategy. Ask, like you said, one, two, or all four of these questions. Begin them with those question words, right? Who, what, where, why, when, how. And then
Yes.
ask maybe what you're most interested in. Are you most interested in where they do that or how long they've done it to engage the conversation? It's just an
Yeah.
excellent way to build connection.
Yeah, this is huge. And, guys, the truth is, especially in business, you're not going to get anything done without having those connections. So prioritize these kinds of conversations. Maybe you have to do it in the break room over coffee, but make time for the people that matter at work to have these conversations. That is huge. All right. Good stuff, Aubrey. Well, thanks for hanging out on today's episode. It's been great.
Yes, awesome. Thanks. I'll see you next time.
All right. Bye.
Bye.